Hey guys, it's Amber from NotableInk.com and I'm sharing 4 cards with vivid autumn color palettes. So if you don't like the drab colors, then these color combos are for you. I have 2 cards that are great for colorists and 2 for those who maybe don't love to color so much. This video is part of the Catherine Pooler and Colorado Craft Company Fall Blog Hop, and I'm so excited to hop along. I'll run through the products I'm going to be using today. If you want to skip ahead to the designing, go to 2 minutes 44 seconds. This is the Paradise Found ink collection. This is a spa ink collection from Catherine Pooler, and these are the minis. And I also have the Midnight mini ink pad as well. These are fabulous fall colors, you guys. I'm so excited to share them with you. I had so much fun watercoloring with them and doing some ink smushing. This is the Mystic Sequins Mix Pack, and there's also some great colors in here. They coordinate perfectly with the inks, and of course you can use them on any other projects as well. So these are super fun. There's a good mix of sizes in here, as well as texture. You can see that those large orange ones have a swirl appearance to them, which is really fun. This is the Just Thanks die from Catherine Pooler, and this die is perfect. It's kind of left aligned the thanks, and you can see that it spans across an A2 size piece of cardstock, whether it's in portrait or landscape. So super versatile, and I'll be using that on a couple cards today. This is the Fall Pick and Mix paper pack, and this is also from Catherine Pooler. So of course it has some coordinating colors here, some great patterns for fall, and just really fun other cards as well. I used that gray and white polka dot today, as well as the blue and white stripes on a very simple, no coloring card design. These are one-sided paper, so you don't have to worry about wasting the other pattern on the other side of the paper. Our first stamp set is from Colorado Craft Company, and this is the Lovely Legs line. This one is Autumn Seasons, and it has a beautiful autumn scene with some autumn leaves, trees, and then some great sentiments. Autumn is the season that teaches us that change will be beautiful. There's a couple of nice little birds in there. And then we also have Ruby Slippers. This is a huge stamp set. This is from their Big and Bold line. And I was so excited to Copic color this one. I'm really excited to share all of these projects with you guys. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and ink up the Lovely Legs with the Midnight mini ink pad here from Catherine Pooler. This is a foam ink pad, so you want to tap very lightly on your stamp set. You don't want to squish this one down like you would with your felt pads, because you're going to release too much ink and things are just going to get a little bit messy. So just lightly tap it. Now I am stamping this on watercolor paper. This is my favorite paper. It's Saunders Waterford High White cold press paper. I love the cold press and the rough paper. I tend to stamp more often on the cold press though, because there's a little less texture. So I did need to stamp it twice. Here I'm going to smush all of the ink pads from the Paradise Found collection onto my glass mat. And I sped through that, you guys, because with the coloring that I'm doing in this video, this is a longer video. So I started off by using green tea. I'm actually going to use every single color from this color palette. I started off by putting green tea and sauna into the leaves here. Then I've added some mandarin spice, and I'm going to come in with a darker green, which is eucalyptus, and I'm kind of just dropping it in there into the leaves with a wet on dry technique. Now, as I start to add more of the mossy green forest floor here, I go to a wet on wet technique. So I wet the paper a little bit with some water so that I can blend out that color and get the color to move a little bit more. I'm using the darker green, which is eucalyptus, around her legs just to add more depth of color. And later on in the video, I'll add some of that peppermint scrub, which is the color on the top left, up in the leaves as well. Here I'm mixing the 2 blues, which is Daydream and Juniper Mist. I'm going to wet the paper with some clean clear water and then drop in that blue, which is just a mixture of the 2 blues. Now it is really unusual for me to do the background at this point. Normally I would paint the whole image and then come in and do the background. I can't really say why I decided to do it this way, other than maybe I thought I wanted the tops of the trees to kind of blend into the sky since they're cut off at the top. But either way, you could do the sky now or do the sky last, totally up to you. So I'm just kind of wetting the area a little bit and dropping down some more blue and just trying to feather out those edges. Here I'm using Sana, which is the yellow for her. I'm kind of thinking of this as like a rain slicker. And I wanted to have some bright colors in there. So I've recently done some cards with some darker, really more traditional autumn colors. These I feel like are more vibrant autumn colors, and I really do love how all of these colors in this collection work together. For the shadows, I started with the orange, which is mandarin spice, and then I mixed some peppermint scrub, which is the pink, a little bit of the royal treatment, which is the purple, and some of the eucalyptus together to create a soft brown for some deeper shadows in there. Next up, I'll move on to the boots, and I'm going to do those with blue. So for the blue, I'm starting with Daydream, which is that kind of more teal blue at the top. And I will use some of the Juniper Mist, which is the darker blue, for some of my shadows, and I'll just bring those in. I'm also careful to leave some white space in there as a highlight so that it just doesn't end up looking like a complete blob. I'm using a number 6 brown brush, and I will have all of the supplies that I'm using linked down below. For the pants, I wanted to do kind of like a purplish brown, almost like a mauve color. I really love the Copic E70 family, and so I'm kind of mixing together a color like that. I'm using a little bit of the royal treatment, some of the eucalyptus, a little bit of the peppermint scrub, and mixing those together to create this kind of, it's the best way that I can describe it is a purplish grayish brown. It's one of my favorite neutral colors, is a tone like that, those E70s. So I'm mixing that together, and I'm only going to do it down along the left side, and I'll leave the majority of the highlight over on the right, similar to the boots. I'm going to use this same color for the trees, except for I will add an additional color. So after I'm done with the trees and adding this brown color, I'll come back in with some of the peppermint scrub to add a little more variation. So at this point, my sky was completely dry, and I brought the tree up too far. So then I tried to re-wet it and lift the ink. It didn't really lift very well. Then I tried to kind of wet it again, and you can see that purple kind of going out into the sky. So I left it alone. I tend to panic normally, and I kind of keep working at stuff. So I've learned that I need to just like stop what I'm doing and move on to something else and then go back to it. So that's exactly what I've done. I'm going to finish up these trees. This is where I'm dropping in the peppermint scrub to deepen up those shadows and add it. Just when you have more than one color on there and you build up your layers with your watercolor, I think you get a prettier effect. You have more depth, and it just looks more natural to me because trees and raincoats and everything else aren't usually just one color. So here I'm dropping in more of the blues, and I start with just the blue, and then I realize I'm gonna have to add a touch of purple over on the other side to get the sky to match a little bit more. So I'm deepening up the color down at the bottom so that it doesn't look as strange up top. So I just keep adding color until I'm happy with where this is going, and it ended up looking just fine, like there wasn't an error there at all. So the biggest thing that I can say is I make mistakes all of the time, like all of the time, you guys, but don't throw it in the bin. Keep working at it. If you're getting frustrated, just set it aside or move on to a different part of the project and then come back to it. In most cases, if I feel like something is really bad, in most cases, if I sleep on it overnight, I come back in the morning and I'm like, that's not nearly as bad as what I thought it was last night. So just keep working at it, and you can see a little bit of purple in the sky there. I did add a sentiment, and I stamped that in the midnight ink. And I love how this turned out. I also added a couple of sequins to draw your eye down to that sentiment down below as well. moving on to the ruby slippers. So I was so excited to color this, you guys. I didn't even clean up the ink on my glass mat. Like, it's still there, and I'm really sorry because that's probably going to be distracting while I'm coloring this, but I do end up using that ink for a card at the end of the video, but I create another card before I clean that up. I have all of the color combinations that I use listed in my blog post, but basically I'm using an R35, R37, R39, and R59 on these ruby slippers. And I'm starting with the lightest color first, and then I move to the R39. And then I'll come in and blend out the R39, my deepest shadows, with the R37. And then after I have those three colors down, that's when I decide that I want even a darker shadow, and I come in with the R59, which is a little bit darker and deeper than the 39. So you can see that I left an area on the toe just completely white because I wanted that to be the brightest area. I find on large images like this, if I just leave that white at the beginning, then I'll end up with one single coat of the lightest color over that, making sure that I will keep that area as light as possible. So you can see I'm coming in with a second coat of, actually this is the R59. This is where I'm deepening it up even more. Now I have the R39. I'll blend that out with the R37. And then I may do just a touch more of the, oh no, I come back in with that darkest, the 5.9 again. And then that's the 3.5. And that is it for the shoe. Pretty simple. It's really nice to have that much area to blend. For the little bow, I just do the whole thing. I block it out in the 3.5. I come in with the 3.9 and then blend that out with the 3.7. I don't think I used the 5.9 on this one. Because it's such a small area, you really just need the three colors to blend this one. And I leave that highlight around the edge so that it doesn't just blend in completely with the coloring of the shoe. I went ahead and finished up the other shoe, and then for the socks, I'm using B12 and B14. Now, if I had had another blue in that color family, I would have used a third darker color. I really could have used a third darker color. I loved the shade of this blue, and I didn't want to darken and change the tone of it to a different type of blue, which is why I didn't grab one of my other blue markers. You could also use one of your gray markers to add darker shadows, but again, I really wanted to keep this sock, this bright blue, like it is in the movies. You know, she's wearing the blue socks, or at least it was interesting because in some of the pictures she was wearing white socks, Dorothy was, and in some of the pictures she was wearing blue socks. I went with the blue because I thought that the card could use a little more color, and I had decided that I didn't want to color the background. I wanted to keep this more of kind of like a graphic feel to this card, and for all of the highlight and the focus to be on these shoes and the socks. So I'm just kind of deepening the shadows here. Anywhere where I feel like there might be a crease, I will go ahead and darken that up with the B14. Then I'm using the tip-to-tip technique to take some of that to kind of have the B12 draw up some of the B14 ink just to help blend those areas a little bit more. My B12 marker was a little bit dry, and so I felt like I had to use a lot of coats of it to get the coverage that I was looking for, which ultimately makes the socks look a little bit mottled in the end. But I still really liked the look of them, and I liked the amount of shadow I was able to get with just the two colors. So there's the second one. And for the legs, I don't do, you guys, I mostly do flowers. Like, I don't really do characters or people or anything like that. So I don't do a lot of skin tones. Now, I started with E50. And then here I have E55. So I usually do my lightest color and then I'll jump to my darkest color. Well, one thing that you should know about the E50 family is they lean heavily towards green, especially once you get to E55. It has a greenish hue that's not a pretty olive. It's more of like a sickly olive skin tone. So I came in with the E51 and covered it up. And then I came in with an E11 to kind of add a little bit of pink to it. So I just tried to add a little bit of a pinker tone to liven it up a little. And I have those color combinations on my blog. Here's the finished card. I added a few sequins from that same sequin mix pack, and I do really love how this turned out with the exception of that skin tone. For the first no coloring card, I used the Just Thanks die to die cut the blue and white stripe paper, and I cut the polka dot paper down to A2 size and then just cut it on a diagonal. I wasn't really precise, I kind of just picked my own diagonal. And then I glued the thanks right above that along with some sequins, and I stamped a sub-sentiment from the Lovely Legs stamp set. It's such a simple card and so quick to make, but I think that those sequins add a really nice pep of color. Okay, so I don't like to waste ink, and these colors were so beautiful, so I'm just going to spritz them with some water, and then I'm going to drop a piece of A2 size watercolor paper right into that. That's the same paper that I used earlier. I'm going to pick that up. I'll die cut a piece of white cardstock with the Just Thanks die, and that card is done. I spritzed it just enough to get the colors to start to move, but not so much that all of the colors mix together. These colors look beautiful together. I just love them. Here's all the cards together. I hope that you guys enjoyed my stop on the hop today. Be sure to check out my blog post. I'll have a link to it down below for more details on the blog hop. And also you can find me on Instagram at Notable Ink. If you're not following me already, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, liking, and ringing that bell so you don't miss any new inspiration. Here's a couple more videos for you before you leave, and I'll see you real soon.